Hello again, good people, the lifter-uppers here of our cancer and comedy community, where we love to help take the grim of cancer and to turn it into the grin of a fulfilled, happy life. And we like to talk to people who are making that transition in their own life, where they have taken some serious matters in life and putting a brighter side onto that. And we're very thrilled to have with us today Marla Hartson. She is from a cancer care comedian, and she is the author of Praise PhD, Praising God in the Middle of Your Valley, Joy in Cancer. And she's quite an accomplished person. She's our guest here today. Marla, welcome to Cancer Comedy.
Thank you, Brad. It's good to be here.
One of the things that's delightful about you, Marla, is your smile, and I get to see you, and hopefully folks in our YouTube video will get to see that as well. But hey, what's something in your life? I know the answer to this, but what's something in your life that's putting a smile on your face here today as we speak?
Oh, well, yes, that's very recent. My husband just walked in with my roses for our 45th wedding anniversary. So grinning pretty big about that. Yeah.
Well, congratulations on that. That's amazing. 45 years. I know my wife and I celebrate 33 coming up before too long. And that is next month, as a matter of fact. And that is an amazing thing. So congratulations on that. And so you got some beautiful flowers with you here today. And tell us what's your husband's name. Tell us a little bit about him.
So my husband is David, and I am the oldest of 4 girls, and my husband is David Hartson, and then my sister Marnie married David Swedberg, and then my sister Vicky married David Foster, and my sister Marcia remains unmarried, hasn't found the right Dave yet.
So it's just kind of a tradition among you sisters to marry Davids, I guess. That's
a good name. It's some really good guys. So
that is.
My husband was a biomed equipment technician, so he repaired medical equipment at a hospital. And so he cannot live if things are not really well maintained. And it's like, that's a marvelous trait to the husband.
There you go. And so like he's kind of in the kind of the medical field, kind of an adjacent medical field, and we're talking a little bit here about a few medical things, and because you call yourself the Praising God in the Middle of Your Valley, Joy in Cancer is your name of your book. So what's in your case, Marla, what is so joyful about cancer? I mean, for goodness sake, those things don't seem to go together. Tell me about it.
Well, cancer is not joyful. Cancer is big and it's bad and it's awful.
Sure.
But God is bigger. He's better, and he is not intimidated by cancer. And so when very early in my diagnosis, my kids were 6 and 10.
Okay.
My daughters. And I was trying to teach them not to complain. And I was trying to figure out what that was going to look like going through cancer treatment. I just shut up for 9 months. Which actually turned out to be pretty true, because my nausea triggered, I couldn't talk. Talking triggered.
Oh my goodness.
My nausea. So I really was more silent than anyone could imagine for that 9 months.
I take it that wasn't your personality type to be silent. Is that right?
No, I'm not known for that.
Right. Do you mind me asking what type of cancer you were dealing with? It sounded like a pretty severe situation.
I had triple negative breast cancer, which is a very aggressive. It can be very aggressive, and in my case, it was.
Okay.
They have some markers for breast cancer, and if you have those markers, they can give you a more targeted treatment. But if you don't have those markers, they just kind of bring out the big guns, and they did. They brought out the big guns.
By big guns, we mean chemo and radiation and this type of thing. Is that what you mean by that?
I mean, well, the chemo that I was on is called the Red Devil.
Oh my goodness!
It's just a really nasty chemo.
I've heard of that one. Yes.
And they had a meeting. Not everybody has a class like this, but my oncologist had a class, what to expect from chemo. And they sat us down and they said, don't believe those horror stories about chemo. We have kinder, more targeted drugs. Except for you, Marla, you'll be on the whole broad spectrum stuff. And I'm like,
Oh, gosh.
that doesn't sound good.
You didn't want to be special at that moment, did you?
Then they said, you can predict how you're going to handle chemo by like how much morning sickness you had during your pregnancies.
Interesting.
I don't know if you know anyone like me, Brad. But
I've not heard that one. Oh, wow. No, I hadn't really heard that. Yikes.
And then they said, and also like if you've ever had vertigo, that can make things harder on you. That's me. I've had vertigo.
You're just blessed all the way around, weren't you? And all this good stuff, weren't you? Good times.
Well, I mean, my story isn't nearly as bad as Deb's, right? I didn't end up in ER with a life-threatening condition, but I did end up really knocked down. I was down and out for a long time, and they had to give me fluids because I couldn't even drink water. So It's funny because people who were like following my blog post and all like that, because I was blogging every day. And then when they actually would come and see me, they would go, wait, she's doing a lot worse than because like I was cheerful. I had just peace that doesn't make any sense during that valley. I just was really hanging on to God really tight. And I had my 3 secrets: praising God, being grateful, and purposely choosing laughter. And I was doing at least one of those every day. But that's like the rest of the time I was laying around groaning.
Well, and that's what your reality was, the groaning and the pain and the mess that cancer is. But here's what I'm loving to hear what you're saying here, Marla, is that you took action, didn't you? You had these 3 things that you were doing, that you were saying that this is what I can do. And so you did those. And so let's take those one at a time for just a minute and just kind of say how those manifested themselves. So you did let's go through them again. What was the first thing that you did as an action point?
Well, praise God.
So let's just take that for a minute. What were some of the ways that you praised God, and just how did that manifest itself? Was it writing, journaling? Was it singing? What were you doing?
I've really learned what praising God means at a deeper level during the Valley of Cancer, because before cancer, I just thought praising God was when he did what you asked him to do, when you asked him to do it, in the way that you asked him to do it. And so that's what my book Praise PhD is about, is like 5 different kinds of praise that I learned. But I would just kind of read Psalms a lot.
Okay.
I just kind of read Psalms until I found a verse. And it's interesting because I had to find a verse that was kind of complaining a bit.
Okay.
That it was like complained like I was feeling. Mm-hmm. And then the praise that came after it felt real to me.
Yeah.
So
you came out of the pain into the praise. And so there is that juxtaposition from the pain to the praise. And that's awesome. That's awesome. What's the second thing that you did? I know you said about gratitude. Well, let's talk about that in a second. What were some of the things you did in gratitude? How did that manifest itself?
I have never written more thank you notes in my life.
Okay.
I've never received more cards in my life other than my wedding. Okay. My wedding was number 1. Cancer was number 2. Just so many people I told my boss, I said, you don't know how many friends you have until you get a cancer diagnosis, and everyone like kind of.
Yeah, there you go.
But what I found was that there's like this initial outpouring of love, but then everyone backs off. And I had to be really intentional about drawing people in, because I needed people really badly.
Okay.
So I was very intentional about keeping my friends close and making it easy for them to support me. And so that's how come I teach how to do that, because I learned from my friends and what they did. Some of the
So,
things they did, I never knew anyone could be so kind.
yeah.
It was just,
So you reached out and you kind of said, I have a need here, and here's how you can help me and how I can help you to help me. Is that kind of what we're talking about here?
that's part of it. Yes.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. So we have the praise and we have the gratitude, and you were very intentional about that. I love that. Then you also said you had the joy and the humor. That was a part of it too. Is that what you said as well? How did that,
Laughter, yes.
the laughter. So what were you doing intentionally to taking action there in laughter? What were you doing that way?
So I had kind of a moment when I started thinking about laughter intentionally, and it was after my first or second chemo. And what happens is when they give you chemo, they also give you all this side effect management medication.
Okay. Yes.
And
Yes.
I was like 4 medications down, and I had to come into my bathroom and figure out where it was going to go in my medicine cabinet. And the medicine cabinet was like spitting medication at me. It was overwhelming. And I, 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 I looked, I was like, and I said, I don't know if I should laugh or if I should cry.
Right.
And I decided I would do both.
Yeah. Because
And
they're both appropriate. They're both kind of two sides of the same circumstance in a way, aren't they?
yeah, yeah, they really are closer connected than we think.
Yeah.
But then this kind of little light bulb went off in my head that, the Bible says laughter does the heart good like medicine. And I was like, oh, medicine, I should think of laughter as side effect medication. And then I thought, well, okay, some of this medication they want me to take, like take this every 4 hours or take this every day.
Sure.
And I decided, okay, I'm going to take laughter every day. I'm going to laugh at least once or smile,
Yeah.
if that's all I can do, at least once every day. And then, but some of the medication was like, if this happens, do this. If this happens, take this.
Right.
So that I was like, okay, I'm going to take laughter. Like if I'm feeling especially down or something, I'm going to do an additional dose of laughter.
Yeah. Were there some specific things that you did? Did you, watch a TV show or read a joke book? I don't know, anything along that line. Were there specific things you did to laugh?
Yeah. So for the timed one, first of all, this was 16 years ago, so we didn't have as much as we do right now. But I asked people to email me jokes, and so they would send me jokes. And but then one of the things I did was I picked some funny movies, and I would set up. I borrowed them from friends and stuff like that.
Right.
So I would set up. So for the days that I knew I was just down and out, I had kind of like a queue of funny movies I could watch. And then what I discovered was that it really made sense to watch the same movies over and over again because I got so sick, I couldn't stay awake.
Okay.
But if it was a funny movie I had seen before, when I woke up, I would remember the movie, I would remember where we were, and I could laugh about the jokes that had just
So you
happened.
kind of had a cue to when it was time to laugh or whatever, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
What were some of those movies? Give me an example, maybe one of those movies that really touched you back then.
The movie that I still watch that's really tied for me is Last Holiday with Queen Latifah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, she gets a diagnosis that she has 3 weeks to live.
Yes.
And
then
she decides to spend all her
goes
money.
goes kind of crazy and everything. Yeah, I remember that movie. That was a great.
Yeah. And that movie was such a wonderful combination of laughter and then these poignant moments when she was just like, wow, facing her mortality and just kind of like, wow, this is where I am. This is really sad. And then they would go back to the laughter, and they handled it really well. And it really, really resonated with me.
I love the way you were very intentional about this, Marla, that, it wasn't just spontaneous laughter at something that might have happened, which is a good thing, of course, but you made it a part of your medication process, as it were. As you say, your side effect medication. I think I love that system, that system that you have created there. And it seems like that all those things came into play kind of to set yourself in a new pattern. And what I like to say sometimes is teach about how we need to take action, and that can get us closer to God sometimes. You mentioned about the spiritual aspects of that. But then we need to have some new thinking, some new ways of doing things, some new processes. And you did this here. Do you think this created kind of a new normal for you, or a new way of processing how you do life? Tell me about that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yeah, I still do it. I still do it now. As a matter of fact, in my work, I'm a consultant, and if we're under pressure, if we're all feeling stressed, I'll stop and have a joke break, because laughter energizes and it releases creativity. When you get so stressed, your ability to problem solve just shuts down. And if you stop and you say, okay, look, we are too stressed right now. Life is short. We're going to have a joke. And then I'll bring out stupid jokes, and people just kind of go, and then we come back at it, and fresh eyes and fresh hearts. It's amazing.
So you some ways you can deal with the more serious stuff, whether it's something really grim like cancer or a work-related thing. If you just take that break to breathe and laugh, or to sigh, or whatever it is, and get back at it, you can have be more productive even. That's good.
Yeah.
A part of what you're doing here, Marla, and what I love about you is that you're writing books, but you also are a cancer care comedian. And that is so cool. So that tells me you have not only taken this experience in your own life, but you're giving back to others. You're teaching other people what your coping mechanisms here. Tell me about that. How did that come about, that you are now an accomplished stand-up comedian and doing some things where you're putting some formation to this process that you use? Tell me about that.
When I wrote my book about praise, and I developed a class about how to help your friend with cancer. And then I got to step 3, and I thought, how am I going to teach people how to laugh? Because laughter is so personal, and I don't know how to teach that. I didn't know how to write a book about it, because I wasn't sure what would make people laugh. And I ended up at a Michael Jr. concert performance, and he mentioned open mics, and I was like, oh, well, I suppose if I did open mics, then I would learn what makes people laugh. And the first time, because my comedy set is actually about cancer.
Okay.
And the first time I got up there and I started, and the people in the front row started crying, and I was like, well, neither knew.
Not exactly what you had in mind, but hey, but it sounds like it, but here's what it did. It impacted people, didn't it? It somehow or another, where it may not be what you thought it would be, but it impacted people.
Well, I don't want them crying. So
right.
I want them laughing. So what I do now when I come out is I start, very first thing, as I say, celebrate with me. I'm X years cancer-free. Right now it's 16. Yeah. And then everybody cheers. And now they're with me talking about cancer from a happy place. And so I bring them out to that place, and then I move forward. And my set is funny, but it also helps people understand what it means to go through cancer in ways that are helpful, things that you don't expect, you don't know. And then when I tell the funny story, you learn. And so it's a really fun way to try to get the word out.
And you even in this process then have been doing this as an ongoing basis. You have a regular show that you do, or you have you've done your performance many times, right? And tell me how that's evolved and changed. And have you seen people then impacted? You said they started crying at first, but later on, have you had people come to you and say something like, this is helpful to me? Or tell me a story about that.
So primarily my open mics I do when I travel. I travel for work. And so, like I said, my kids were small, and open mics are blue. I call them blue.
Sure, of course. Yeah.
Not clean, let's say another way of saying it. And so when I'm in town, at home, I'm a Sunday school teacher, and I have kids that are like on the edge of adulthood who would want to come see me perform, and I don't want them going to those places because of me.
Okay.
So it's like, that doesn't work. So I've done my open mics on the road when I'm traveling.
Okay.
And and I tend to go to like a client for a year or two or 7 or 10, whatever it turns out to be. And so one of the places where I've done most of my open mics, one time I was back in town and someone came up to me afterwards and they said, "Oh, I was hoping you were going to be here. I brought my friend because I wanted her to hear your story."
Sure.
And said, "What you're saying is so absolutely true. You know, that this is, I work with people who have cancer, and what you're saying is true." So that was really cool.
That's fulfilling when that happens.
When COVID came and I wasn't traveling as much, and we moved, when my husband retired, we moved. And so now I'm in a new place. And so I started my own clean comedy open mic.
Yeah. So what, did you set that up at a, did you do that at a club that you have a connection with, or how did you set that up?
Oh, God provided the venue, and he needs to provide me another one, because right now I'm looking for a new one. But it's just a restaurant that let me come in and do it on a Sunday afternoon.
Wow, that's great. And did you get good response for that from the people who came and participated?
So it turns out there's a church here in town that has what they call a fun arts program for their high schoolers.
Okay.
And Assemblies of God has a national competition. And this church is in Assemblies of God, but they're allowed to participate.
Right.
And they just took the top 4 slots in the nation.
Wow.
So, and where can they practice? They're not old enough to go to open mics, let alone, you know. So, so giving them a platform of where they can perform is just a thrill to me.
That is awesome. That is awesome. That's giving back in a very fun and practical, eye-opening way. You're an encourager, aren't you? I can see that. I can see that's a part of your giftedness. You're an encourager to other people by your story and by young people and that type of thing. And that's a part of your story. Do you think that's pretty important these days to be an encourager? Because it seems to me there's a lot of discouragement and a lot of loneliness and a lot of pain in the world, and a lot of need for some encouraging words. Tell me about that. Do you experience that in either your work or your life out there? There's a lot of discouragement.
Well, first of all, I don't think that the need for encouragement is new. That's always been.
Sure.
But what I find is that we are built to avoid pain. That's how we're designed. You know, you touch something hot, you just instinctively pull your hand back. And when you're around someone who's a downer, you pull back from that relationship. That's just natural. When someone's diagnosed with cancer, that depressing, like, it's sad to be with them. No matter how fun they are, it's still sad to be with them because cancer is very sad. So you have to be really proactive to choose to step into that friendship. And I do that.
Yeah.
I purposely step in. And
that's choosing to be vulnerable, which is hard to do. And that's great to do. Great to hear.
It surprises me how hard it is for me when I do it so much.
Yeah.
And it's still hard a lot of times.
Yeah. I know you also use some other processes, I guess, that I think are important, that could be great tips, because what we like to do here on Cancer Comedy is help people cope with hope and humor. And I know you have a few tips for how to deal with doctors and doctor's visits and things like that. So tell us about that. What do you, there's this dynamic between, I just went through it this morning with my own urologist. I'm a prostate cancer survivor, and I went through this morning. We have good banter back and forth. My doc and I do, and that's part of our deal. But not every doctor and patient does. So tell me, how do you, what suggestions do you have for this relationship between the doctor and the patient?
So first of all, prepare a joke to bring with you. And it's really easy to find them. Go online and look put the word clean in there because otherwise it might not be. But search for like clean eye doctor jokes, or
Okay.
and you just recently used the one that I use quite a bit, which is, but here's another one. What do you call a potato who needs glasses?
Oh, lay it on me.
Spectator.
Spectator. Okay.
So what I do when I come in to the office, I start with the check-in desk, okay, and I say, "You guys heard any good jokes today?" And they always say no, and I like that because that means whatever I have, no matter how pitiful it is, it's the best joke they've heard all day.
Yeah. There you go. There you go.
So then I share my joke, and just as I go through, I always say, "Would you like to hear a joke?" And if they say yes, then I tell them, and if they don't, then I drop it. But what it does is it takes my mind off of the, "Oh, I'm here for this." I just like, the thoughts you're thinking when you're going to the doctor, you're thinking thoughts. Okay. Yeah. And if you have a joke and you're coming and you're thinking about telling it to people and like that, you are taking your mind off of what you could be thinking about and you're putting it on that joke, and you're giving a gift to them of laughter. And it is such a gift to you.
Sure.
I heard my sister had gallbladder surgery. So she called me up. She's like, "Marla, I need a joke." And I'm like, "Oh, I got one." So why was a skeleton afraid to cross the road?
Lay it on me.
Because he didn't have any guts.
Oh my.
So she told this to all the people as they were prepping her for her surgery. And by the time they got her in the operating room, they weren't letting her tell it anymore. They were telling it to each other. And this attitude of laughter and joy in her operating room.
And that relaxes people too. Yeah.
All the stress she would normally have had thinking about this surgery coming on was totally distracted by the joy of everyone's laughter.
Yeah. But sometimes it's good just to get a good groan in too, isn't it? It's kind of a groaner. I know even this morning, I've prostate cancer situation, so I had to take the nurse came in and said, "Here's your cup for your urine test." I said, "I've been studying all night for this one," and my wife was tired of that one, but she got a kick out of it. But you just do what you can do, and it relieves the stress a little bit, and most people take it well. Sometimes I carry around little joke cards with me. Like I went to the state fair a month or so ago, and I met some folks at checkout counters. So when I said, "Hey, how about a joke today?" I would tell them the joke, then I would give it to them on the little card, and so they could keep it with them. So I just think that's just do things like that. And that I mentioned the card things because I know that you enjoy using cards, kind of funny cancer cards as a part of what you are all about. Tell me about that, how that's a part of what you're about as well.
So the last day of my radiation treatment, and I wanted to write a thank you note to my staff, and people had given me cards because they knew I was sending out so many thank you notes, and somebody gave me one, and it had this little teeny square, and I was like, "I am not pithy. I'm an apostle woman." So epistle woman.
There you go.
Anyway, I wrote this in this long letter. And at the end of the letter, I said, "Now you've done well, and I'm well done."
Oh,
I'm pithy.
You're pithy. That's awesome.
So that was my first card. And then I found a company called Greeting Card Universe and it's online. And you just go and you upload the picture and you upload the text and you turn it in, and then people can buy it and print it on demand. So there's no there's no investment. It's free to create the cards and put them out there. So you just put them out there. And so
that's awesome.
I don't know,
that's awesome. Well, that's great. It helps to brighten up people's day, and it's a tangible thing too. And I think it's good to have a tangible thing sometimes, like whether it's a card or you tell a joke, that's one thing, but they can go away pretty quickly. But sometimes if you like somebody has a silly saying on their T-shirt or something like that, you can remember that kind of thing. So, well, you're quite the lady, Marla. You really are. You really got some great things going on. But here's what I want to ask you this. I want to kind of bring us around this way. You have talked here today in our great conversation about how you had this really bad thing happen to you where you were in a bad state where you couldn't even talk. and then how you chose to take some actions, with your praises and with your gratitude and with your humor to turn your life around. And it just very intentional on your part. And I love that about you. I also know that there's a real need for that. So let's just say you're talking now to that person who's in a bad state, but they are kind of stuck there. They're kind of stuck in a bad state, and they have a hard way of thinking about how to come out of that to any better place. What kind of word would you give to that person? What kind of encouragement would you give to that person who's stuck in that grim state?
Two things. One is, I don't want to minimize or discount anyone's emotions. However, when you're going through cancer treatment and you are feeling emotional, I want to encourage you to always think physical first. Because chemo is attacking your gastrointestinal tract, and you experience emotions in your gastrointestinal tract.
Okay.
And when you say, I'm just sick about it.
Yeah.
Right? Well, that's sick in your gut.
Right.
And I'm telling you the flat out truth. The chemo made me feel like that.
Yeah.
And so I am very blessed. My husband would watch, my hands would clench. We'd be in the car and he'd see my hands clench. Wasn't thinking clearly enough to know. But he would see my hands clench and he would just pounce. He'd say, okay, what's wrong? Are you in pain? Are you hungry? Are you nauseated? Do you have medication due? And he would just go down that list with me until make me think, what is physically going on? Okay? And then we would deal with the physical. And whatever was left, then we would deal with that. But so many people are trying to deal with the emotions before they deal with the physical.
Yeah.
And the emotions are real, but it's just like, you just can't handle them when your body is under such attack.
Sure.
So you have to deal with the physical first, and then absolutely deal with the emotional.
Sounds like it's a process.
Deal with that however seriously you need to. There's psychologists and psychiatrists, there's medication, there's all sorts of things, okay? Deal with it appropriately, but deal with the physical first and try to reduce it and then deal with it.
Great advice. But it sounds like the idea there is to, deal with the crisis at hand, the physical crisis, and then get better. And the emotional and the spiritual part is all a part of that. That's great. Well, Marla, if people want to find out more about you and what you're all about, your books or your blog or your card business, how can they find out more about you?
I have a page on Facebook called Joy in Cancer, and I post 6 days a week. On Mondays and Fridays, I post praise. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I post gratitude, and on Wednesdays and Saturdays, I post laughs, because I have friends who are going through cancer, and I want to not only encourage them to do it, but actually help them do it, help them have that, show them what it looks like to do it every day. So that's where I would suggest going first. My book is available on Amazon, and my cards are available at Greeting Card Universe. If you look for funny cancer cards at Greeting Card Universe.
We'll put links to all that in our show notes at cancerandcomedy.com. What a terrific time to spend with you. You have my heart, Marla, and you have a heart for people who have grimness in their life, and you want to turn it around and to offer some good. And I love your philosophy, about praising and about gratitude and about joy and laughter as a part of that. And that's really a part of what our heart is here at Cancer and Comedy. She is the author of Praise, PhD, Praising God in the Middle of Your Valley. Her name is Marla K. Hartson, and she's been our guest here on the Cancer and Comedy Podcast. Marla, Great to have you with us. Thanks for being our guest today.
Thank you.